what he's doing is almost like bubblegum. It's like boy band stuff. NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, they didn't get respect because it was all produced for commercial reasons. He's 29 years old, whatever. He was making no money. This guy comes out, put a couple crowd work clips up. TikTok blows him up, and he went from making $40,000 a year to $30 million. Every comic I know, the comics that I've talked to, they all respect Matt. They think he's fantastic. I think he's awesome.
Emilio Savone, co-owner of the New York Comedy Club, operator of a global ticketing platform, an in-house record label, and a management roster of absolute heavyweights. He doesn't just navigate the comedy industry, he builds it. Our first ever repeat guest is back.
There's a lot more comedians at Tier 1 selling out Madison Square Garden than ever before. Doesn't that pull away from the smaller clubs?
Comics are always going to want to support the clubs, always. The more shows that they're doing at the Garden, the more often they're going to be at the clubs because that's their gym.
New York is not the city that never sleeps anymore because of all these regulations.
Our biggest stress is, my God, what if our liquor license doesn't get renewed one year? Then what? You're screwed.
Do you think Austin has overtaken LA in the pecking order of comedy cities?
Unfortunately, there's kind of this riff right now happening where it's like the Mothership almost versus everything else. There's a Rogan style of comedy that's happening. That's the Kill Tonys of the world, and it's like hardcore extreme comedy.
This is the Black Hoodie. We talk to 3,500 comedy and music industry executives on our newsletter at theblackhoodie.com. But you're watching this on YouTube, and we recently had a video get over 20,000 views, which is surprising for an industry podcast like this. So if you are somebody who consumes all your content on YouTube, please hit subscribe. Emilio, welcome.
Hey.
Last time you were on the show, you gave us the full business playbook of running the New York Comedy Club. Got a lot of incredible feedback from that. So I'm pretty pumped that you wanted to come back on again. And I wanted to start something different this time.
Okay.
I want to think about what is it that is stressing you the most as a New York Comedy Club owner right now? If you were to wake up at 3 a.m., what's it likely to be that is really stressed you out?
It's funny. It's not so much, it's more things out of my control, right? So it's not necessarily the comedy. It's not necessarily like, worrying about necessarily, tickets being sold. It's more like if someone fell inside the club and cracked open their head, or if someone got really drunk and passed out. It's more liability issues. It's maybe something happening with the staff, So those are things that really kind of can stress us out because, we're in a very, very tight community in comedy, especially here in New York. And all it takes is one person inside your club to do something really, really stupid that can affect everything, And
is your stress about the cost of liability or the reputation?
Both, but, totally both, really. Look, we work really hard at our reputation, and one of the things, like, when we first talked, I did make a big point about how our online marketing is so important and all that. But the reality is this, what's really made us who we are is that my partner, Scott, and I, we live and die, with the club. Someone said something really, really interesting to us when we first opened, because we were looking to hire someone to help us, like, to manage the club. And he was looking at between us and another club. And he said, the reason why I want to work with you guys, because when things go wrong, I know that you guys are going to, like, do everything in your power to make sure things get righted and to make sure that you guys continue to be successful. He goes, I don't know if the other club I'm looking to work at feels that way. He goes, I think they're just a group of people that just want to own a comedy club. Right? So for us, we put so much into our reputation. And also really, obviously, and we put so much, money into what we do that obviously it's really a good mix of both. But also, we want to create a really positive environment. So, it's things like that, it's community stuff. It's like worrying about the neighbor or woman across, or if there's a person across the street who's going to call and complain that there's lines outside, or try to create like a sense that we're being unruly. I mean, at one of our clubs, truly, like, our Gramercy location, we're in like a neighborhood. We do everything in our power to make sure that we're abiding by like, noise laws and all that stuff. But a lot of times we'll have like one neighbor who just won't stop calling 311, won't stop complaining, even at the littlest thing. There might be someone just outside smoking a cigarette, or they're leaving the club. Like after a show, there's 90 plus, 100 plus people leaving the club. The second that they leave the club, we literally have a neighbor who will call and start complaining. And we're like, we're letting a show out. Like, and then what happens is every 2 years, you got to go in front of a community board and you have to re-up your liquor license. And our biggest stress is, my God, what if our liquor license never, doesn't get renewed 1 year? Then what? You're screwed.
Mm. And there is a sense that New York is not the city that never sleeps anymore because of all these regulations.
Totally. 100%. And, that's why you're seeing, I think, a lot of these pop-up shows and a lot of these like companies like Don't Tell, which I think is amazing. I think they're doing an amazing job, but it's almost like they don't have liability.
Mm.
So in some way, they almost can sleep a little better at night. When you own a club, you have insurance, you have liability. I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong.
They would still have liability though, right?
It's different though, right? Because we do a lot of pop-ups as well.
Mm.
So, especially when we were coming up. So for example, like we were doing stuff at this, hotel in Fairfield, Connecticut. We were just, basically an imprint of what they were doing. We didn't really have to have insurance. If someone, fell and broke their neck, that was the hotel. It wasn't us. Yeah, our liability could be with like the comics and stuff like that, but it's a completely different kind of liability that you have. And then you also don't really have staff, right? So if you're running something like like one of these companies that's just doing pop-ups everywhere, the people that are working for you are really independent contractors. Whereas I have staff. I have people that are employed by me. They're W-2. They're not just, they're getting paychecks. They're on our paycheck system, and, they have to take sexual harassment courses. They have to take all these they have to have a food handler's license. You have to have all these things in place to be able to operate. Your security has to have certain licenses. Whereas if you're just doing a pop-up, you can kind of piggyback off what venue you're doing. Mm. And if you're doing BYOB, right? If you're not
Is that legal, by the way?
BYOB?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can it's. Yes, I don't know the exact letter of the law, but I'm pretty sure if you do BYOB, you don't need a special license or anything. I'm not exactly sure on that, but if you're not serving liquor, then that alleviates the majority of your liability as well. It's really when you're serving liquor that you have a lot of liability. So again, a lot of these companies are not serving, or a lot of these pop-ups aren't serving liquor. So they might say it's just BYOB, right? And in that situation, in that scenario, you're not really on the hook for anything because you didn't sell liquor.
Mm. Did you read the story that we wrote about the pop-up comedy business?
Loved it. And shout out to those guys. I mean, Kyle, who I just met for the first time. We had dinner actually a few weeks ago. I actually told him he should do your podcast. I loved it. When I read stuff like that, I think a lot of people who own clubs might see that as almost a threat. I don't. I see it as an amazing thing. I think it's awesome. I think the more different ways comedies can be produced and consumed, I think it helps everyone. I think it'll make people want to go to the clubs more. It's like, oh, I saw this, show in a random barbershop. And I think it'll make them more interested in kind of changing their palate to go see a club, and vice versa. I think if you're someone who goes to comedy clubs all the time, you should go check out a different kind of setting of a show. It's no different than going to see your favorite band at the Garden versus going to see them at like, the Blue Note.
So do you see the rise of pop-up comedy, which as we showed, for Don't Tell, it's a $10 million business right now. It's kind of come out of nowhere. You would imagine in a few years it'll be at 20 mil and it'll be really substantial. Do you see that as almost like a top of funnel for comedy clubs? Like they're bringing in new people that otherwise wouldn't have gone to comedy?
For sure. I think everything does that. And I think we see that with the rise of the internet. We see that with the rise of YouTube. I think when the internet came out or when comics were really utilizing the internet, I think there was a lot of fear that, well, people are not going to go to clubs. It actually did the reverse. It made people want to go to clubs more because people were being more they were seeing more comedy. There was more ways to see comedy. And I think that makes people want to go see it in its live setting. So I think when there's these pop-ups that are happening, and so many of them are happening in random cities, I think a lot of these pop-ups actually thrive better in these secondary markets. So if there's a pop-up happening somewhere in the middle of Ohio that probably doesn't have a real a real fully formed comedy club, well, when they come to New York, one of the first things they want to do is go see a proper comedy club. Not that what they're doing isn't proper. What they're doing is great, but it's not like your traditional comedy club, right?
Yeah.
So again, I think, it's almost like when people bring someone to a show with them, like we do a lot of these promotions where it's like, hey, bring someone to the club, you get in for free. Right. So when that happens, when you bring someone to a comedy show it's never been before, that basically will multiply. It has a multiplying effect. That means that person now is going to bring someone else, and that person will bring someone else, and that. And next thing you know, you've cultivated like a whole group of people that usually wouldn't go. And I think all these different forms of comedy that are kind of being produced, it all funnels back to the clubs. And I think vice versa. I think the clubs make people interested in going to more, underground shows too.
So one thing that's happened over the last few years is there's been a lot of new comedy superstars created, right? There's a lot more comedians at tier 1 selling out Madison Square Garden than ever before. Comedy is now
that you've never even heard of.
Totally, right? And there's comedy's now the number 1 podcast category above sport and news. Comedy at the top is now so much bigger than just Eddie Murphy, right?
Oh yeah.
And I think in some respect that must obviously be fantastic for the comedy club ecosystem. But if you've got more comics selling out Madison Square Garden and other venues around the place, doesn't that pull away from isn't that now more competition away from the smaller clubs?
Because first of all, comics are always going to want to support the clubs. Always. And the more shows that they're doing at the Garden, the more often they're going to be at the clubs because that's their gym. So you take Sam Morrill, for example. Sam is, he's taping his next special is going to be taped at the Tampa Theater, which is this gorgeous, gorgeous theater down in Florida. And he just did 6 shows with us at our Stanford location. And he probably would not have done that if he wasn't just trying to get reps and work out, his special. So because these comedians are doing these massive, massive shows, they're going back into the clubs to work out that material, to kind of hone it, to test it, to get the rhythm down, to get everything down. So the more of these big shows that are happening, the better it is for us, because no one wants to test material out at Radio City Music Hall.
Yeah.
No one's going to use a theater as a testing ground. But the clubs, there's kind of an agreement with the audience. Hey, you're coming to a comedy club because you're going to see people work a lot of stuff out as well. And you can have more of that engagement with the audience. You can't tell someone who's spending $100, $200 at a theater that, hey, I'm going to test out some material for you.
So something that I'm curious about then is I saw Neil Brennan last time I was at your club, and he appeared like a headliner in that respect. Was that a headline booked show, or was he just coming in as a showcase?
He was just coming in as a showcase. Unless a lot of times what happens with a guy like Neil, he'll ask for to do extra time in a show. So
right, it did seem like a longer set.
Yeah, so he might have been doing longer time.
Yeah.
So, again, like Matt Richards, for example, who's a comic that we've worked with for years, who's doing really great. And that is someone that your audience needs to know. Matt is, in my opinion, he's probably pound for pound, one of the top 5 funniest guys in New York. And he's preparing for a half-hour special. I can't really say where yet. But so we've been having him at our club a lot. We're just giving him 20 to 30 minutes on shows just to work it out. But we're not promoting it like a headliner.
Yeah.
He's just on the lineup and he's not really promoting it. We'll promote, hey, Matt Richards is on the show, but we're not really saying he's doing 30 minutes or this or that. Now, if it was booked as a headliner show, then it's very different. If it's booked as a headliner show, well, then he needs to promote it. They need to, there's certain things we ask for in terms of ad access and be able to target fans and all that stuff. And there's a little more heavy lifting on them. And then we put most of the marketing efforts and attention on that comic. But when it's when a comic like a Matt or a Neil or a Mark Norman or whomever is hey, can I just do a long set? We'll let them do that, of course, and kind of put them in with other comics so they don't feel the pressure of having to do a headlining set. Because when you do a headlining set, you're pulling your audience to come, and then there's a certain expectation from your audience to bring your A material.
Yeah. So how are the economics different then for the comic? Do they get paid differently? Are they just renting the room out when they're a headliner?
Yeah. So there's I was just talking to one of our bookers about this today. So there's 2 different types of shows. You have a showcase show, which is typically going to be anywhere from 5 to 7 comics. They're each going to be doing anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. And you have a headlining show. And the economics behind that are very, very different. So in New York, most showcase shows are not going to happen. It's very rare for there to be showcase shows happening in the middle or in a city that isn't one of the main cities. LA, now Austin, New York, Chicago to a degree, Boston, they can do a lot of showcase shows because there's so many very good comics in that scene, right? Or there's notable comics in that scene, right? So in New York, you can run a lot of showcase shows because you'll have comedians like Chris Stefano, Sam Morrill, Mark Norman, Jessica Kirsten, Rachel Feinstein, whomever, who just want to do 15 minutes. They want to pop around from club to club, right? So the economics there is they just get spot pay.
Mm-hmm.
And spot pay can vary anywhere from $50 to $100, depending on the night of week. Sometimes it's more if it's on the weekends. But if you're doing a headlining show, well, then most of the time, that's going to happen outside the city because a club outside the city can't fill a Tuesday night with just doing a showcase show because they don't have enough comedians to do that. So if you want to get Chris Stefano to come and do a show in Topeka or somewhere in Wichita, right? Well, you have to talk to the agent. You have to put together an agreement and a contract. There's going to be expenses involved because now the focus is on making sure that comic has security, make sure there's green room costs, there's a rider, that there's food. They're getting a big part of the door. They're going to get about 90% of the door. So you're not going to make as much on the actual tickets. So you have to kind of offset the fact that you're not making enough on revenue with expenses that the comic would have to clear before they get to bonus after their guarantee. So it's a completely...
Hang on, slow down. So I've got a bunch of expenses, the flights, the accommodations, food, whatever. You're saying that the comic does not get paid until those expenses have been recouped?
They get a guarantee.
And
it's called a versus deal.
Yeah.
So if you're a comedian who is a big draw, you might get a $10,000 to $20,000 guarantee for a weekend at a club. And then it's called versus 90%. And some comics get 70%, some get 60%. Some don't get a percentage. Some get a bonus structure based on amount of tickets sold. Mm-hmm. So let's say you sell 300 tickets, you'll get a $500 bonus. Let's say you sell another 300, you'll get a $1,000 bonus. That usually in many ways benefits the club to do it that way because once you do if you do a versus deal, let's say you do a versus 90% deal, the second that comic sells enough tickets revenue-wise to clear their guarantee and the expenses, then every ticket sold after that, they get a piece of 90% of.
Yep.
So a comic on a weekend, like at our club in Stanford, we have comics that'll make 40 to 50K in a weekend. Mm. Right? So.
And the venues.
But it's different because at my club in New York City on a Tuesday night, we'll have comics who will sell out 6 shows on the weekend, but they're coming in doing 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm not expecting them to promote the shows. We get to promote it. They're on our lineup, but I'm not expecting them to do anything other than just go and perform. Mm. And also a lot of times they might cancel last second. So you have to put disclaimers in the lineup hey, at any, subject to change.
Yeah.
And so you have to also be careful as a club how you're marketing that. Because if you're going in heavy on one comic and they don't show up, you might get screwed,
True.
Right? So that's why you want to be kind of very careful in how you promote a lot of this stuff. But if it's a headline, and so that's why the comic's not getting paid like a headliner, because there's no real expectation from them other than just to show up and do their spot. But the second they're headlining a show, well, now there's certain costs that need to be covered. The focal point is on them. I'm not going to charge comics costs or again, agent involved for a $50 spot on a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
And it's a totally different language. So again, I have 3 bookers at my club. I have a development booker, I have a showcase booker, and then I have a headlining booker. And our showcase booker is speaking a totally different language than our headlining booker. And one thing I always want, what I want is I want my bookers to know the entire language. There's all these different variations of the language, all these dialects, if you will. Mm. And I had no idea how to book these headliner shows until COVID, because COVID forced me to have to deal with a lot of the agents. And agents, I think, get a bad rap. The reality is, man, if you get a good relationship with the agents, it makes your life so much easier because then, it just, now you can just go to an agent and say, hey, send me over your roster, who's available. It becomes very, very plug and play.
Yeah.
And I'm also on the management side, so you don't want like I have no issues when clubs hit up my comics. In fact, I do get annoyed when agents and managers get upset when a club owner reaches out to a comic. I think that's a little absurd. However, I can understand the protectiveness, because the last thing I want is for a club to ask a comic a question that makes him kind of feel uncomfortable, that, when it comes to money on the road, right?
Well, the thing that exposes the talent is that they can often agree to things without thinking it through.
Or they just don't want to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
So you don't want to put the comic in that position. So when you have a relationship with the agent, a good relationship with them, there's an understanding, like, hey, like, everyone wants to do right by the comic, and it's our job to discuss the business side of it, right?
Yeah.
So again, it's like totally different. So just kind of reiterate the point. If again, like Chris, we're really close with Chris, and we've managed, we've worked with Chris on the management level, on the Chris Stefano on the management level. We've worked with him on the record label, the whole thing. But even if I'm going to book him on the road, I will reach out to his agent. Now, of course, I might say to Chris, hey, Chris, we'd love to have you at our Stanford club, but I'm not going to send him a deal. I'm going to send it to his agent, who's Michael Berkowitz, and say, hey, Mike, we'd love to have Chris here, So there's like so it's totally different, but the economics are totally different. And listen, there's a good debate. What's better for a club, to run a showcase style club or to run a headliner club? I think if you're in New York or if you're in LA, without question, a showcase club. But we do a lot of headliner stuff too, in New York too, because I want to be able to give someone like a Jessica Kirson, the opportunity to make some really good money at the club and still get to work her hour, But I think at the end of the day, like, it's rare to be able, you can't run showcase clubs at the capacity that we do in New York City. It's impossible. That's why when everyone talks about these other cities that are blowing up for comedy, which is phenomenal, and I'm a huge supporter of Austin comedy. I love the comedy scene there. It just will never replace New York, because there's not enough people. I don't want to say never. Maybe more people will move there, more comics, but the amount of comics that are here, the amount of people that are here, you just can't get exhausted by New York City. If I'm in Austin for 5 days, I've seen it all. I'm ready to go home.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been here. How many times you visit? You've probably gone to places.
I'm here about 4 times a year.
You probably are constantly seeing new things.
Yeah.
It's rare to get that.
Yeah.
And when you come to our club in the city, you're not going to see the same comics. Whereas I think in a place like Austin right now, you probably are. With the exception of like a lot of the bigger guys that like to come by for a week or so. And that's not me shitting on Austin. Austin is awesome. I wish there was more Austins out there that were bubbling up. Joe DeRosa, who's a comic I managed, moved to Austin. He's getting all his reps in at the Mothership. He's working the Creek and the Cave. Like, he's taken kind of that New York City mentality and is bringing it to Austin, where he's popping around to all the clubs. But time will tell whether or not Austin can sustain all of these venues. Whereas you have a place like the Mothership, the hope is that, what's the saying? Rising tides
lifts all boats.
Lifts all boats. It's soon to be seen whether or not the Mothership is going to do that in Austin. Whereas in New York, that happens. I think clubs like ours and like the Cellar and like Gotham, I think they do that. I think the more A-list clubs are in New York, creates more opportunities for other clubs to open up.
Do you think Austin has overtaken LA in the pecking order of comedy cities?
I think in terms of, God, it's a tough question. I'm going to say no, because LA's got 3 great comedy brands. I mean, they got the Improv, they have the Store, and they have the Laugh Factory. And now downtown LA is starting to blow up as well. I think in terms of like gritty comedy, in terms of like the pure comedy, maybe, because again, like when I go to Austin reminds me the most of New York, where you can bounce around to 5 different clubs within like a 3-block radius, and you can do multiple spots. You can't really do that in LA, but I still think, LA and New York are the top 2 places for stand-up. I think Austin is still formulating what it is. And I think unfortunately, there is kind of this riff right now happening where it's like the Mothership almost versus everything else. I think
who sees that? Sees it that way? Is it the comics or the club owners?
I think the perception. I think there's a perception of Austin that there's a Rogan style of comedy that's happening. That's the Kill Tonys of the world, and is Rogan, and is like this kind of like hardcore extreme comedy. And then there's like this in a progressive town like Austin, and like there's this pushback against it. I think Austin is struggling with accepting the fact that there's the Mothership. In some way, not the clubs. I think
it sounds like you're talking about the clubs.
No, not. How do I say this? I think, for example, like you take like I don't know if like Moon Tower is doing stuff with South or doing stuff with the Mothership. I don't think like South by is doing stuff with the Mothership. I think there's a lot. I think there's
South
almost
by is or isn't?
Is not. I don't know if they are or they're not.
That's because I've been to South by more times than I've been to anything else, and I don't know why Mothership would do anything with South by, because they're full every fucking night.
No, for sure, but I just feel like they're almost kind of like an island by themselves a little bit. And I don't want to speak for other club owners there because I really have no idea. I mean, the only really other club owner the Vulcan over there, I know the owner there, Nick, is at the Mothership all the time. He has a great relationship with them. And, Rebecca at the Cretan Cave, I mean, she's like the mother of comedy. I mean, and again, she would be someone that I think you should talk to. But she is, I don't think she's supportive of all things comedy. It's just, it just feels like Austin is still trying to find its voice as to what it is as a comedy scene.
Yeah.
You have a lot of independent shows. You have a lot of random shows. You have shows that are happening in houses. You have like still this true to form what Austin is as being weird. But now you have this institution. It's like they took the Comedy Store and the Comedy Cellar, they rolled it all up in one, and they just put it right in the middle of Austin.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like there's almost like, it seems like there's a little bit of resistance towards it by some of the more like true people, like the true like artists in Austin, the comics in Austin. And maybe it's because it's not an easy place to get into. Maybe it feels a little Boise club. Maybe because like it feels like it's infiltrated the scene. I don't really know, but it just feels to me like as much as it's been so helpful and so great for the scene there, it's kind of viewed as like this kind of shocking type of place. It's kind of like made people think, and I also think because people think Rogan is kind of like this like extreme guy when he really isn't.
He's a polarizing figure though.
It's a very polarizing place, I think, for people.
Yeah.
I think Kill Tony's a polarizing show for people, and the rub of it all is like these guys, it was all born out of LA. It all came from the store.
So I haven't seen the data, but I can't see a way that the Mothership hasn't been economically fantastic for the other clubs in Austin. I just can't envision how that would happen, because you get all these new comics in. They're not only going to work the Mothership, surely. They would go around to other clubs. People would go to Austin for the Mothership, and then they would also go and check out other clubs. Are they not experiencing an economic uplift?
If I had a club in Austin, first thing I would do is I would build a relationship with the Mothership, right? And I would see what they're doing, and I would not copy it. I would do the opposite way. And what I would do is I would create a community, my own kind of community, and I would see it as an opportunity to say, okay, they're getting weekend headliners like these guys or these comics, and there's all these other comics that can't get there, so I'll have them. I would do everything that in my power to create something that is kind of like another way of doing it. But I wouldn't do it in a way to almost like be like, we're different than, I wouldn't be like trying to be different in a way to be like they're not great. I would be saying, no, the Mothership is awesome and we're awesome too, and this is why.
Sounds like the approach you've taken in New York versus the Comedy Cellar.
Yes, the exact same way. And I do think the Mothership, if you're not thinking that way, has crushed you. I think if you're not thinking that way, it's probably hurt you, because it's frustrated you. It's made you feel probably less than. It's probably made you feel like you're not getting as many options. Like, you're probably, people are probably saying, "Oh, I can't be with you. And I'm sorry, I got 3 spots at the Mothership."
Yeah.
Right?
And you've been there for 20 years and now you're like, well, fuck.
Exactly. So again, I do think initially when the Mothership opened, it probably hurt a lot of the clubs there. But I think now I would hope it's helping but here's the difference too, right? I think people that are going to Mothership probably live like an hour. Some people might be living 2 hours outside of Austin, right? So if I can't get tickets to the Mothership, I'm probably just not going to come to Austin. But you're not coming to New York to go see a comedy show. You're here just to be in New York. And if you want to go to a comedy show and you try to get into our club and we're sold out, or try to get in the cellar and they're sold out, well, you're probably still going to go to a comedy club.
Yeah.
You're just going to go to a different one.
That's a really good take. I hadn't thought about that. I didn't realize that there was a long commute to get into Austin as kind of like a customer behavior.
Well, what I'm saying is that I guarantee you the Mothership are pulling people from like 2 hours away, 3 hours away. They're building their whole reason to come to Austin to go check out the Mothership.
So maybe it's a lot better for the restaurants around there than the other clubs.
Yeah. So yeah, I think what the Mothership is doing is, probably building a better economic situation for 6th Street. I will tell you that. Like 6th Street, for example, I remember, it's on 6th Street, which could be 6th Street used to be the place back in the day where all the stuff was happening in Austin. Then it became kind of like a real dirty place and kind of crime at night and kind of nuts. And I'll tell you, the last time I was in Austin, which was a few weeks ago, 6th Street felt great. So in some way, I think the Mothership is kind of cleaning it up. But just to put like a little, just to kind of, put a little ribbon on it, I think a place like the Mothership is amazing. I think it's great for Austin. I just think Austin is still trying to find its full voice and what it is in the comedy scene. And I think LA has its voice. I think we have our voice. We have our institutions. I think Austin's still trying to feel it. So has it overtaken LA as like the number 2 comedy scene? No, in my opinion, it has not.
So in Australia, we have huge tall poppy syndrome. Are you familiar with that?
You have what?
Tall poppy syndrome. Are you familiar with that? That is where as soon as someone starts to become successful in Australia, everyone starts to hate them.
Yeah.
And I think it stems from our very small population because there's not much money to go around. There's not many opportunities to go around. So one person being successful kind of means that somebody else can't be in a small population like that. It's pretty savage. It's even worse in New Zealand where the population is even smaller. And I don't see that at all in America, really. Most places where I look, like everybody has this like, abundance kind of view where it's like you can be successful and I can be successful and we're all good. I don't actually. The exception to that is probably the comedy scene, and I feel like the way you're talking is rare in not with the comics but with the owners, club owners.
Rare in that what? I'm not. If they're doing
you have exactly, yeah. If you're like,
that's because I'll tell you why. Because I come from a promoter's background. So like my, again, like take the ticketing for example. And listen, the reality is this, like, my ticketing might, at the end of the day, you got to run. Culture matters. Community matters. I don't care how good your marketing is and how good all this other stuff is. If you're not doing things the right way inside the club and your staff isn't doing things the right way, you can sell a boatload of tickets. The reality is if the shows suck and the club's not being run well, customers are just not going to come.
Yeah.
My success or my club's success, my team's success, the ticketing is a huge part of it, but the bigger part of it is, my whole thing is get people in the door, but how do we keep them in the door? Our bread and butter is that we've kept people in the door, but I have a promoter's mentality. So that ticketing platform is a perfect example of how we conduct ourselves because we have other clubs using it. And why do we want other clubs using it? Because we feel like we've tapped into something that is really, really useful. And I want other clubs to be able to share in that because it makes for a better comedy scene, not just in New York, but anywhere else. So again, Brisbane, for example, we're working with Guilt Free Comedy, this club out in Brisbane that this awesome guy, Tony, runs. He heard your podcast. He hit us up. We met, we talked, and we're doing his ticketing, but I also basically serve as a consultant for him. I put him in touch with agents. I do, I'm not getting extra money for that. Why do I do that? And I'm not doing that because I'm like some kind of saint, but I'm doing it because I love comedy. I know the plight of a comedy club owner. I understand like how difficult it is to do it. And I think I tapped into something, or my team has tapped into something that can help him. And of course, business mind or business wise, 100%. I'm also looking at it like, hey, the more tentacles that we can have in all these different places, the more it benefits comics I manage, the more it benefits comedians I work with, the more it benefits agents I have relationships with. Of course, it's all calculated in a way of like, I'm not just doing this because I want to be a great guy or a good guy. I'm also doing it because business-wise, I'm thinking, how is this going to benefit the overall everything that I'm doing? But that also, that helps that could help everyone and anyone, right?
There's two things aren't opposed to each other. You can be a good guy, you can like helping people and collaborative, and there can also be a business benefit.
100%. And I think a lot of people don't know that. I feel a lot of people like, are almost, they almost feel like embarrassed that they're able to make money off of something that like art.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't look at it like that. If you can make money, then you can pay people more. And then you can pay the artists more. You can pay your staff more. There is that's like how you build economies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like for real.
Yeah.
Like nothing gives me greater, nothing makes me feel better than knowing that I have over 100 people that work at all my clubs and they're all able to support themselves, support their families. We have people working in our office that get health care and all that stuff. None of that would happen. They get health insurance. None of that would happen if we didn't create all these other revenue streams. Whether it's through the ticketing that we do, whether it's through like, what we charge at the door and all that stuff. I mean, the way we do our loyalty programs, all this stuff, our record label, everything.
The money on Netflix. So in 2024, they did 49 specials, which was like double the year before that. And they grew again in 2025. The top tier comics are earning anywhere between $20 to $40 million a special.
Yeah.
But everybody else is getting about $100,000 to $200,000 a special. To me, that's just covering costs. I don't know how much does it cost to record a special?
I mean, if you're going to do a special, like, look, it varies, but like, if you're going to do like a proper, like Netflix, Hulu. I mean, look, we've done Netflix specials. We've been involved in Netflix specials where we paid, we've spent 50 to 60K, but that's really, really, really on the cheap. I mean, in truth, you're going to be spending anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000 if it's a special that's going to go like on a Hulu or it's going to go on a Netflix.
So when Netflix are giving comics $100,000 to $200,000, they're barely covering the cost.
Well, totally. So it's very different. So that's more of a licensing fee. So the way Netflix was doing it, I don't know if they're still doing this, to be honest, but when they were doing their Netflix as a joke series, comics were getting, around $200,000 a special. And it was a 2-year licensing agreement, but there weren't really strict stipulations on the cost of production. So I think in that scenario, a lot of comics were getting away with doing, 50 to 100K in costs for production. Because again, it wasn't like you had to get anything okayed by Netflix. So you basically could film a special, have it ready made, send it to Netflix, and they would just license it for 2 years. Whereas you take a company like a Hulu, where they might give like a comic that isn't at Dave Chappelle's level, but someone that's like, a hot comic who sells well, but they're not Chappelle. They might give you $1 million, right? But they're going to say, hey, out of that $1 million, you got to carve out this much
for production. Yeah.
And there's certain stipulations to it.
Yeah. And so if you're doing the license deal or you're getting the cheaper special,
is it still worth it? I mean, I think it is.
Why?
Well, because let's say you're spending $100,000 on the special. So let's say your net is $100,000 as a comic, and obviously you pay 10% to your agent, your manager. If you have a lawyer that was working on the deal, that's another 5%. So you're bringing in more. Then you're making $75K on it, and then of course you got taxes and all that stuff. But you're not going to make really $100,000 on your YouTube special. Even if you get like millions.
Schultz did more than that.
Well, Schultz though he did a paywall.
He had both.
Well, but he made and again, I don't want to speak for Andrew, but I'm pretty positive because he took it off of, I think it was going to be on Amazon. Then Amazon had all these, they wanted him to cut a bunch of stuff out.
Yeah.
And he said, screw it. He basically bought it back from Amazon and then he was selling it for like $5 or $10 on his website.
But then he then put it on YouTube with a whole bunch of ads in between.
Cool.
So he ran both races. Made a fuckload of money.
Andrew Schultz is not going to take a licensing deal for $200,000.
That's true.
So if you're a comic who's
Yes.
going to take a licensing deal for $200,000, you're not Andrew Schultz. So yes, Andrew Schultz, Chappelle, those guys, of course, you're not going to do that licensing deal. But if you're a comic who's going to take that licensing deal, what you have to decide is, okay, what's more important for me right now? To be on Netflix, to make maybe $100K, $50K, $75K when it's all said and done, versus putting on YouTube. And really the only purpose of putting on YouTube is that you hopefully can get multi-million views and it helps you sell tickets.
Yeah. Well, it seems like
Because Netflix is not going to help you sell tickets. Putting your special, let's be very clear here, putting your special on HBO, Hulu, Netflix, it will not help you in any way sell tickets. So
what?
So,
I thought that was the only reason you would do it.
you only do it so you can say you had a Netflix special. It does not help you
Why
sell
do you want to
tickets
say
at all.
that if it doesn't help you sell tickets?
Well, because it's, there's validation in it. It's like, oh, I got a Netflix special. I mean, look at, so there are comics we've worked with who had a choice. Do I put this on YouTube or do I put it on Netflix? And we were like, put it on Netflix, because what if you put it on YouTube and let's say you don't get 5 to 10 million views, right? Because there was a narrative going around where, Sam Morrill, Mark Norman, Shane Gillis, these guys all were kind of the first to do the YouTube specials.
Yeah.
And they all got like 10 to 50 million views. And then it kind of, and that didn't really happen. That hasn't really happened that much since. So if you're a comic who has a chance to put your special on Netflix through a licensing deal or on YouTube, what if you don't get 5 to 10 million views on YouTube? Then it's kind of viewed almost as kind of like a dud, right?
Yep.
But if you put it on Netflix, it's a Netflix special. No one knows the difference of what you got paid. Like you do because you're in the comedy business. But to the regular person, they're like, oh shit, this guy's a Netflix special. And then the next time you do a special, notice how many comics do a Netflix special. And then in their next special, they'll put it on YouTube. Jim Gaffigan just put a YouTube special out,
Yeah.
right?
So it's a brand perception play.
Totally. And YouTube right now is kind of viewed as the comedy club, the online comedy club.
Yeah.
It's where you go to really reach like the real comedy fans right now. Whereas doing a Hulu Netflix special is like, doing the theater.
And I feel like the frequency of specials are just so much higher now. Like comics are putting out
Everyone
one every,
wants a special. Everyone's doing special.
but they're also like the same comics are doing one a year. Like there seems to be a lot. Is the quality going down? Is what it means to release a special different now than it was? 5
Totally.
years
And
ago?
there should be a different name for it. They should just call it something different. It's like, a lot of it's about just getting clips. A lot of it is just, about driving traffic to wherever you're trying to drive traffic to. So for example, when you are doing these Netflix, Hulu specials, a big part of the conversation around it is, for the comic is they want to be able to clip it up and put it on their own YouTube.
Yeah.
That's a big thing now. And if they don't allow you to do that, well, then they got to pay you more money. So again, why these Netflix is a joke licensing specials were kind of cool because one, you get to be on Netflix. Okay. 2, it wasn't a very long-term deal. You get it back in 2 years. You can resell it or you can repurpose it. You can do whatever you want. And 3, you can still clip it out. So it's a little bit of a hybrid model.
There's kind of no loss. And then they pay for the production. So you get your production costs covered.
Well, I mean, you're paying for it, but what they give you covers it. Sure.
Yeah.
But I bet there are a lot of comics that did those Netflix as a joke specials where they got paid $200K. I bet a lot of them didn't make money. They probably broke even on their production.
Yeah.
And they just did it just to have that Netflix special out there. And then they could clip it up. They can use that, they can also, use some of those clips to monetize it too.
Yeah.
There's all these little things they could really do, so yeah.
It's interesting, like when you said a different name, because I feel like when artists release an album, musicians, they release an album that is like, this is my heart and soul, I'm presenting it to the world, this is everything. And then they came up with a different name for songs that they were just having fun with and they called it a mixtape or they called it a cover or they had these other things. And so as a fan, you knew how to interpret the work.
Well, here's look, but here's the thing. Here's why so many specials exist now. And this is where comedy's changed big time. Like Seinfeld. I mean, I remember Seinfeld and Louis like had a kind of like a debate over this years ago where Louis was like, you always have to have new material. And Seinfeld's perspective on that was always like, that's crazy. Like you can't come up with new material every year. Like, back then you could do your old material, right?
Because there was no internet, really.
Exactly. So now, a comic, the whole reason why a comic is doing a special is just to put to rest the material they've been working on for the last year and a half. And then once they do the special, they're done. And now they gotta come up with new stuff. So that's kind of my point. It's almost, maybe they should call it, I don't know what name they could call it, but it's almost, I don't know, maybe they should call it like a record or recording or something. Because that's really what it is. Think about in a band. A band does an album. They tour the album. Well, it's kind of backwards.
Yeah,
the band will do the album first, and then they tour the album to promote the album. And then they do another album, and then they'll play the new music on it, but they have the luxury of playing some of the hits.
Yep.
And then after a while, you compile 20 years of music, and then you're probably playing only the songs that were really good.
Yeah.
That's not how it is in comedy.
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite. Comedy, I'm on the road in the clubs to build up to my special. I do the special, and then you're never going to hear that material again.
People don't want to hear the same joke twice.
So when people are like, there's so many specials coming out, I think to the regular person who is not in comedy, they're not realizing like, it's not that these comics are trying to oversaturate. It's not that they're trying to exhaust you. It's just they're done with that. You've seen that material before. They got to put a ribbon on. They got to put a bow tie on.
Right. Do you think comics are less restrictive about burning their material these days? I was talking to Kyle at Don't Tell, and his model is that he books the arcs on these pop-up comedy shows, and then he gives them an extra chunk of change to be able to own the clips that they record, and then he releases them.
Yeah.
And my question was, well, aren't they worried about burning their material? He goes, no, they don't give a fuck anymore. They just want volume of content out on the internet.
They've gotten a lot less restrictive with it, and nothing is more frustrating than when a comic still has that old school mentality. I think comics really have to, and I think a lot of that comes from their reps, their agents, their managers. I think a lot of them are so protective of their clients, and I think they're gripping the bat too tight. Kyle's 100% right. But I also think comics feel this way because they have been exploited by a lot of bad doers in the past who are like Kyle, and again, Kyle and I talked about this. Like Kyle is, comes across as the kind of guy, and he's told me if a comic doesn't want something up there, he won't put it up. So so I get why comics can be that way because they might be like, hey, I'm working on a special and this joke is going to be in there. So they become less restrictive. You have to be less restrictive because the internet is such a big part of it now. The reality is, the fans don't care. Even though I just said comics are pumping out specials because because once they do a special, they're done with the material. I don't necessarily think they have to think that way. I don't think fans care anymore about hearing a lot of the same stuff. So I do think comics they are finally adapting this or adopting this idea of like, hey, it's okay to put stuff out there. It's not going to affect me getting a late night set. It's not going to affect me on my special. If anything, it's used as a promo for people who want to come and see you do more long form comedy. So yes, 100% it's become less restrictive, but there is still, it hasn't fully evolved yet. But I think where the protectiveness comes from the comic is that, comics get very wary of people putting their stuff on different platforms, YouTube, right? So that's where comics become very, very cautious, which I don't in any way begrudge them for. They should. So like a comic might be like, yeah, I don't care about my stuff being out there as long as it's on my stuff.
Yep.
But if I work a club and they put something on their YouTube that I didn't approve, well, I have an issue with that because they're exploiting my material without my approval.
Yep.
So we do the same stuff. Like we're running a whole YouTube outfit at the club. It's a big part of like our business right now in terms of what we're trying to grow. Are we monetizing it right now? Not really. Like the goal is to monetize. And then once we do monetize, we're going to share in the monetization with the comedians. But the comics, we tell them what's happening. We book them specifically for those shows. So if you're a comedian and we're going to do a show that we want to put on YouTube, we'll say to them, hey, we're going to be doing a show. The goal is to get material for YouTube. There's going to be a monetization. Basically we're looking to monetize. It's almost like we're setting it up like a headlining show. Not a headlining show in terms of them performing, but there's an agreement.
Yeah.
If we make money, this is what your percentage is. We're going to approve all the clips by you. We're going to make sure that you approve everything. But once it's approved, then we put it on our YouTube and then we share in the monetization.
Yeah.
Whereas I think a lot of places, they might not do that. And that's where the comics, I feel like, are like, hey, I don't want my stuff out there. I didn't give you approval.
It sounds like a no-brainer for your business to make almost every set recorded, and then you can go to a comic even after. Outside of these pre-approved shows, you would go to them after and say, hey, that clip was really sick. Can I either buy that off you or can we upload it and share in the revenue?
That's exactly what we do. We record every single show. We have a whole production team. Every comic that performs at our clubs has their own file. It's basically like their own server they have a link to. And within 24 to 48 hours, their entire set, everything literally appears in their folder. And then, we have a record label, and then we also obviously are doing the YouTube stuff now. So if something really hits, we will approach them and say, hey, you had a really killer set. Would you want us to put this on our YouTube page, or do you want us to package this as like an audio play and we could submit this to SiriusXM as a track? And it's just another way to generate revenue for the comedian and for the club. So again, I think
what's stopping you guys from uploading 5 clips a night? Because that seems like a huge competitive advantage for you guys, and you could have a pretty fucking monster YouTube channel over the next couple of years.
Well, what prevents? Well, one, I mean, what can prevent you is you just have to go through the approval process.
Yep.
You have to approve with the comics.
Yeah.
And again, that's what I mean. A lot of comics, they're like, they get protective of what you're putting up and whatever. So sometimes it will, dude, like we just did a YouTube show where we had 5-6 comics on, and it took like a month for us to go to get the clips that we needed to put up in the sets because there was so much back and forth. They're like, well, I didn't really like this joke. It didn't really go well, or this didn't really play. I don't want this out there. And it's like, a lot of it is us putting like the comic's mind at ease. Like, dude, it's great. It's fine. Like, it's going to sound good.
Yeah.
It looks good. It's going to work, So
I got an idea for you.
It's almost like we're like editing it with them.
Yeah.
Right?
I've got an idea. Can I share an idea?
Yeah, sure.
So if you almost built like some automated CRM where you had this call it like a pre-agreed pipeline where every clip that's approved by us and then later approved by you, we'll give you $1,000, but we get the full right for it or something, whatever.
Sure.
Pick up a number. So you've got these clips that are just being pumped every single night. You're probably getting 20, 30 clips a night, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you have this, you could build this with AI pretty easily. You have these clips get automatically populated into this dashboard. Someone in your building who has taste goes through and goes, these 5 are mad. You click them, and then it goes automatically notification to the comic, and the comic says, hey, if we post this on our YouTube, you'll get this $500, this $1,000, whatever on this agreement, sign and accept, and it's done. And you could have that whole thing automated every single night. You would be a fucking monster on YouTube in 2 years.
Well, listen, one, fucking brilliant idea. 2, I mean, that's kind of how it works with the audio that we've been doing. But again, we've been doing this for years. The YouTube stuff really is kind of like something that we've been focusing on over the last 6 months, but 100%. And that's really where we're going with it. But what's good is though, but here's the thing, because it's still so new.
Yeah.
Like now the comics that are doing this with us, they're seeing the benefit. Like Katie Boyle is a comedian that we work with. Katie, her clips and her sets on our YouTube page has compiled like over 7 million views. And her subs now on her YouTube channel is increasing.
Yeah.
And she's seeing more people watching all her stuff, because if you're someone like Katie, you're going to get more views on our channel than you are on your own.
But it's even better than that. Because
No. So but my point is, but now someone like a Katie, someone like a Paul Verzi, they've been doing this with us. So now that trust is there,
Yeah.
right? So now it's not going to be that difficult the next time we want to put their stuff up. Because they'll be like, oh yeah, cool.
go.
Like you got my approval. It's just, it takes a minute to get that trust.
I got you. But one thing the comics don't probably know is that you can. Recently, YouTube have released this collaborative post feature where it can almost be on both channels.
100%. Now I don't.
It's not quite the same.
It's
but
not the same.
pretty close.
The collabs on YouTube is still not as effective as it is when you collab on like an Instagram.
Yeah.
But yes, you can collab on YouTube for sure.
Yeah.
But again, it's all new stuff. And you know how it is with new stuff, everyone's going to be a little weary. Everyone's going to feel like, well, I don't want to be taken advantage of. I want to make sure I'm not being exploited. Even like with a club like us that has a really great relationship with all the comedians, I just, I think, comedians, and rightfully so, are very protective of their stuff. But to your point, they're not like it used to be, especially the younger comics. The younger comics don't care. They just want their stuff out there, I
mean, okay, you're paying a comic $50 for a spot, and they're releasing their clips on fucking Instagram all the time anyway.
Yeah.
And so if I'm a comic that's getting $50 a spot, and then I get home from the New York Comedy Club one night and I open up my phone and it says, hey, for an extra $500, this can go on the New York Comedy Club channel. Do you want to do it? And I've already released that clip anyway. I don't know how many comics would take note of that.
True, but my mind goes, well, isn't it better to have like, so what we do is we do splits with them, right?
Yeah.
My view is, okay, I can give you $500 right now, fine, but wouldn't you rather just get a percentage for
Of the upside.
perpetuity?
Yeah.
That's what I would rather do.
Well, I think that's actually a better deal for the comics for sure.
But I want that for the comics.
Yeah, but I wonder
because
if
I want that for the comics.
Yeah.
You know why? Because I know what's going to happen. What's going to happen is, and this will happen 10 years from now when they become the next Kevin Hart. You're probably going to get an email from an attorney or something saying, hey, we don't want you exploiting this anymore. You only paid us $500.
Yeah.
So, but
this is the catch-22 because I actually think the split is the better long-term option for the comics for sure. But I also think they're less likely to have, say, an instant yes than $500 in their account.
100%. If $500 right now, they would take all day, every day.
Yeah.
But I'm again thinking more in terms long term. But also, I want to have partnerships with them.
Yeah.
And this kind of comes to my whole thinking and really my whole team's thinking of like, you're right. Like from a business standpoint, it benefits the clubs and us way more to do it that way. But
particularly if you're only selecting the clips you want. It's not all your clips. Like you go through and you go, we want these 3. So you're kind of limiting your risk. It's not like you're going to be pumping out 10 grand a night on paying for these clips.
No, for sure.
Very selective.
Yeah, no, for sure. I know. I just always like, listen, Luke, honestly, a month from now, don't be surprised if we're doing that.
Bro, I can build you this fucking platform in a day.
But also, no, totally. But also, like, again, I think I like the idea of us being a venue where comics are like, oh shit, like I'm still getting paid from a YouTube clip from like a year ago.
Yeah. I mean, maybe
I think that's fucking cool.
Maybe there's a mix of both. Maybe it's like 500 now, and then after X amount of revenue, you do it like a promoter deal, maybe.
For sure. Well, on the show, when you do a YouTube show with us, we pay you more.
Yeah, yeah.
You're getting paid more for those, just to be on the show. Again, but it's still so new. Like we're not really making money on it. But let's say a year or 2 from now, we're really making good money on it, dude. I'll be the first one. I will assess it. I'll say, you know what? I would be the first one to go to a comic and say, hey, we'll give you $500 to $1,000 for this. And then once we make X amount on it, it'll go into a split with you.
I think if you can put together a fund, let's say you put together like 50 grand, 100 grand as an experiment fund for the next year or so, in 2 years, you will have the biggest comedy channel on the internet by some distance.
Well, I'm planning on having that anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way
it'll be a
totally.
huge revenue channel for you.
That's totally smart. Yeah, totally. Yeah, but again, our approach has always been, no, you're 100% right. Dude. That's really, really smart. But again, it's just still so new for us, and we just kind of look at it like, hey, we want to work with the comics we want to work with. We want this to kind of be a collaborative sort of partnership. We want everyone to understand the long-term thing. Let's limit liability and risk and costs and all this stuff. But yeah, I think what you presented is very good.
I'll invest if you do it. I mean, let's talk about crowd work clips.
Yeah.
So a lot of comics are blowing up with crowd work clips. Are they making the club experience worse because the crowd now think they're part of the show when they show up?
No, not really. And I think crowd work clips are kind of, I think it's a little bit more of a thing of the past now. I don't think it's become as big of a thing as it once was. But to your point, why do comics like doing crowd work clips? Because then they don't have to burn material.
Yeah, and they get content for their online.
And it's a clip.
Yeah.
You know, it's a minute clip, a 2-minute clip. I mean, it's not like the whole set was crowd work.
Why is Matt Rife, telling the LA Times that he doesn't think the comedy community likes him because of his crowd work clips?
Matt. So, a lot of like pure comedy fans or comics that I know, they all respect Matt. They all like think, how can you not respect what he's done?
The numbers are enormous.
Numbers are enormous, but there is a certain snobbery to comedy, the back of the room. There's those purists that, there's a certain thing you have to do as a comedian that if you don't do it, it's almost like you're not going to get the respect. Comedy is like magic, right? So comics, when they're in a room watching another comic and they see Matt doing his crowd work, to them, they're like, the audience thinks what he's doing is genius, but they're like, what he's doing is not difficult, right? They're like, he's not really saying anything. What's really his perspective? He's a good looking guy who's flirting with these women at the show. It might seem really off the cuff and really like authentic to the audience that night. But if you go to every one of his shows, it's a formula that he has. So the reason why he's probably not getting the respect is because what he's doing is almost like bubblegum. It's like boy band stuff. It's like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. They didn't get respect because it was all produced. They were put together for sole reason, for commercial reasons. And there's comics out there that are so much funnier that are not getting any of the credit they should. And a big part of it is jealousy. A big part of it is like, fuck this guy. He's 29 years old, whatever. He was making no money. I've been doing this for 20 years. I got into all the big clubs. I went through the whole system. I had to get in the back of the line. I had to take a number. I fought. And still I'm not making the living that I should be. This guy comes out, puts a couple crowd work clips up. TikTok blows him up. And he went from making $40,000 a year to $30 million.
Yeah.
So he's not viewed as someone who paid his dues. Now, but here's what's tough for a guy like Matt. It's almost like not his fault, because I guarantee you, Rife, and I don't know Matt personally. I guarantee you, he would love nothing more than to be able to go into a comedy club and really work his shit out. But how can he do it? He's Matt Rife. He's massive.
Dave Chappelle can do it.
But Dave's earned that right. Dave's.
If Matt called you up tomorrow and he said, "Hey, I want to do a whole bunch of spots this weekend," would you say no?
Of course, but he would be freaked. But it'd be very difficult for him to do that because the audience would have this expectation of him, and maybe he's not there yet to work on material in a way to still like be like really funny. Whereas
Chappelle, he's in his own head.
Yeah, look. There's a lot of these big social media comics. I'm not calling Matt a social media comic.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these really big social media comics that are terrified to do stuff live because you're on a tight wire up there. I mean, there's no net to catch you. Chappelle is one of the best. I mean, he's earned that credibility with the audience, with his fans. He can be on stage and try stuff. I mean, he's honed it down. Whereas Matt, is still relatively young. He's still relatively, he's been doing comedy for, good amount of time now, but he didn't build his bones as a stand-up comic per se because of his material, really. He did it because of these clips. Whereas a guy like Chappelle, Chris Rock, Bill Burr, I mean, these guys are, I mean, they were, when they popped, they were ready, like they had already been beaten up. They've already gone through the ringer. I mean, think about a guy like Louis. I mean, Louis wasn't really selling out anything until he was like his mid 40s. First time Bill Burr did Madison Square Garden, I think he was 44, 42. Meanwhile, Matt Rife sold that. Didn't he sell out like 6 MSGs or? Yeah. He's like 27, 28.
I think he's done. I've got it written down here somewhere. He did. Where did he do it? Where did I write it? It's just crazy money.
Again, let's liken it to music, right? I mean, how many like brilliant like guitarists might see like some band with like a like Poison?
Did 57 Matt did $57 million in just one tour in 2024. Just
crazy.
one tour.
So it's like Poison, for example, the band Poison. I mean, I don't know. I'm asking, are they like the best artists in the like? Are they that great of artists? Was their drummer the best drummer of all time? Was Bret Michaels the greatest singer of all time? I mean, they were like a hated band in the 80s by like Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses and all these guys. They're viewed as just these guys playing like fluff music, and they appeal to like a female audience, right? Whereas Slash is like legitimately one of the greatest guitarists of all time, right?
Yeah.
So it's no different in comedy, you know? But what's been really interesting,
But this is new for comedy. It's always been the case in music.
But here's what's interesting about comedy, and I think this is cool. You're seeing, though, these purist comics now stepping out of that bubble and playing the online game. And it's made them better. You know, like one of the most pure comics out there is Sam Morrill. Sam is as purist as it gets. He's a joke writer. He's a fucking gym rat. He's one of the best comics out. And he recently, now over the last 3-4 years, sells a shit ton of tickets. Why? It's because he's putting his stuff online. You know, he's stuff that he would probably never thought in a million years he'd be doing. He's doing things, you know, that guys, you know, like, you know, Matt Rife is doing to get his stuff out there. Now, he's not like giving in on he's not giving into his principles as a stand-up, right? But he is, you know, guys like, you know, Sam are now playing that. You have to play that game, because if you're not going to sell tickets. But but if you ask any of these comedians, a guy like Sam Morrill, hey man, would you love nothing more to have to deal with that part of it? He say 100%. The last thing I want is do that. I just want to be in the clubs and just perform and just do my theater shows and do whatever. But there's a new bubbling. There's this whole new like sector of comedians. And I'm not putting Matt Rife in this category, because Matt has been doing stand-up for a while. But there's a lot of these social media comics who've never performed at a club before. Are they comics then? Are they stand-up comedians? They're not stand-up comedians. They're just comics, I guess.
Yeah, they're just funny content creators. And
there's comics now that that we, again, like have worked with at our headliner clubs, because they sell tickets, who want to, which I give so much respect for. Like, hey, I really want to know how I can break into your clubs in New York, because I kind of want to get away from this thing I've been doing, and I just want to become more of a comic. And that's what Rife means. What Rife is saying is that I'm not viewed as a real comic because I didn't like struggle or suffer which he did, by the way. The guy did struggle and suffer, but I didn't get the validation. People don't think I got validation because I'm funny. They think I got this validation, this fame, because the right clips hit and my crowd work stuff hit. And I'm not doing this based on my material. I'm doing it based on this thing that I do.
The chit chat. What?
Which isn't easy, by the way.
It's definitely not. Otherwise there'd be heaps more Matt Rifes. I can't think of a comic recently.
Well, it was just one more thing. I'm so sorry. But every comic I know, well, not every comic, but like the comics that I've talked to that are real hardcore, pure comic people, they all respect Matt. They really do. Like, you know, like I'm really close with Chris and like Joe DeRosa. They all, they fucking... They think he's fantastic. I love him. I think he's awesome. I think he's good for comedy. It's a different kind of, it's like he's a different genre. More people that want to go see Matt Rife, hey man, are going to probably want to go see someone else who's doing something similar to what he's doing. There's nothing wrong with it. I think comedy can be, just like any art form, could be really fucking snooty.
Yep.
And they need to get over it. They need to get over themselves. There's a lot of ways to consume comedy. I'm telling you, man, it's like a fucking whirlwind. We are involved in so much stuff between management and road rooms and New York and this. My day is like living through like a schizophrenic fucking, it's like literally I feel like I have like 18 different personalities throughout the day, because I'm talking to different people that have different views on different things depending on the venue and where it is and what we're doing. And it's like, it's nuts.
It's art.
Booking the club in the Upper West Side is different than booking the one downtown, because you got to think about the audience and this. We can't book that comic because that comic might kill the show, even though they sell tickets. We got to put them at Stanford because they can sell tickets. You know, it's just like, I get it, right? But it's like, I don't know. I just wish it was as simple as like, hey man, people find it funny. Do they like it? Do we really have to overanalyze this?
Hey, tell me about your bookers. You said you've got 3. Are they, and this is a question for you, and tell me what is industry standard in New York. Do bookers just get paid a salary or are they incentivized on success?
I mean, depends on the clubs. I don't know how clubs do it, but we have 3 bookers who are phenomenal. We have Candy Claire, Joe Checkman, and Claire Livingston. Candy Claire, and then we have Claire. So that's always confusing for people. But so Candy is really kind of like our head booker. I mean, she's been with us for years, and she's like an institution in New York. I mean, she's been doing this for like 20-something years. She knows everyone and everything. So, obviously she gets, we pay them a salary, and we always give bonuses at the end of the year. It's kind of difficult to kind of incentivize someone like a Candy on a commission because it's showcase.
Mm-hmm.
So she's not really, it's not like, and she's not someone that really cares about whether you can sell tickets.
Yep.
Her whole thing is if you're funny.
Her success is laughs per minute, probably.
Her success is curation.
Yeah.
Her success is, are you funny? Are you getting laughs? Are you saying something? Do you have a perspective? Do you have a point of view? So, whereas our headlining booker, her success is when she books Stanford and she books Atlantic City, her success is purely predicated on ticket sales. Right? So it's a little easier to give that person a commission because, again, we need that club to, you're booking it for people who can draw. Because New York is just different. The club, thankfully, is going to be full, because it's the New York Comedy Club. We build a reputation up. You're going to get all these great comics. We have our own way of promoting and all that stuff. So, but just to answer you pretty much straight, yes. Our bookers, they are incentivized because they're either going to get a bonus or they're going to get some kind of commission structure. And then obviously they're getting a salary as well. Now, we pay our bookers well. A lot of clubs don't. A lot of clubs, because people, it's weird. Having a good booker is the most important thing you can have at a club, but yet so many clubs pay them the least because it's such a desired thing to want to do.
Right.
So it's almost
There's a lot of people want to be bookers.
They want to be bookers.
Right.
And a lot of people want it because they love comedy. It comes with a lot of clout. So it's almost like, if you want to get in the music industry and you get to work for Sony, they're probably going to pay you shit for the first few years, but you get to work for Sony.
Yeah.
Right? So it's kind of like that at the booking level. It's like, now we don't really subscribe to that view because in our view, booking is very, very important and we want you to be paid well to be able to do it.
Well, I think you pay someone well if they're good. Like, I don't mind not paying somebody at all if they're just starting and you're training them because this is an internship. This is like, I'm giving you a free education right now.
For sure. I mean, even that though, we don't really do it. We used to do interns, but my partner Scott is not a big fan of it because he comes from the music side and he saw like the pain that he had to go through being an intern. And his view is, hey man, I'd rather just pay somebody and make sure they're good.
Yeah.
Than having some like intern, following us around. Like we don't have the time to try to teach someone how to do something. Like we'll teach them, but we want them to be really good and hold them accountable. So let's pay them.
Yeah.
So we've kind of,
I'm the same now. Yeah.
We don't have any interns. We've had people be like, hey, I'd love to intern for you. And we'll say, well, let's just interview you first because we'd rather just pay you. I mean, I think we should have interns. But he's So I had this big chat about this with Warner Bailey, who runs this media business called Artists First Assistants. Have you heard of those? Of course, yeah.
So that's an episode that we filmed. It's not out as we're speaking now, but it's coming out before this episode. And we had a big talk about this. And he was saying, he was like, no, I don't believe you shouldn't. I don't believe in unpaid internships. But he did it. I did it. Your partner Scott did it.
Yeah.
Everybody I know that's successful ate shit for free for a long time and learnt it. But the counter argument to that now is I'm in a position to take unpaid internships and I just don't want to deal with it anymore. I'd rather just, like Scott said, pay someone good and just get the job done in a good way. Yeah.
And here's another example too. Like, everyone, the minimum wage thing, right? Like I have no problems with raising minimum wage. It makes look, the last thing you want is someone to be like, I'm only getting paid $9 an hour, so who gives a shit? But if the minimum wage goes up, then people are going to be it's a more desired job. People want to work there. They're going to be held more accountable and you can hold people more accountable.
Yep.
If you're an unpaid intern and you fuck up, you can always, at the end of the day, you're still unpaid.
Yeah.
But if I'm paying you, we have an agreement. I am paying you. There's a great scene in Mad Men that they've been running where John Hamm's character is talking to, one of his employees, and she's saying to him like, "You're not grateful. I don't feel appreciative." And he's like, "That's the money I pay you.
That's what the money's for.
Yeah, that's what the money's for. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, too.
He's like, that's what the money's for. He's like, what do you want? You want me to give you like a cookie? He's like, do you want me to, I don't know, I'm just paraphrasing, but it's one of my favorite scenes because it's like, that's what the money's for. Why do you need me to validate you? You're getting paid, are you not?
Honestly, I'll wholeheartedly agree with the sentiment, but it's so wrong. And I've had to learn, because I'm not good at words of affirmation, is not something I'm good at with my staff, and I've had to learn it. I went to a fucking communication class to get better at it. Like, it's so strange to me because when somebody pays me, that's the way I receive it. That's what the money's for. I'm happy. I don't give a shit if you don't talk to me. If you pay me, we're good, right? And so, but other people aren't like that.
Dude, so
most people aren't like that.
So I sent that to my girlfriend, who, we're not going to say her name, but and she hated that clip.
Yeah.
She hated it. I thought she was going to like it, but she hated it.
Most
She's
people
like, what
hate
a
it.
dick. I was like, no, I agree. Like, it's a bit extreme, but you get the nuts and bolts of it, right?
Yeah.
So I guess the point is, well, you know what? There's a good reason though for it too. Maybe, we've all done the unpaid internships, maybe because we don't think that way now, because we look back and realize maybe it was a little fucked up. Look, I don't know. Like,
I don't think it was fucked up.
I don't think it was fucked up either. I think you got to cut your teeth and you have to like really, really like grind it out. But
do you know when Warren Buffett tried to get an unpaid internship when he was just starting out trying to learn investing, he said, "I'm happy to work for free." And the fax he got back, or call he got back, said, "Warren, at free, you're still overpriced."
Oh my God, that's so good.
And I'm like, that is actually unpaid internships. You spend a lot more time investing in them than they give you back.
Yeah.
And so that hits me a lot. And that's, ever since I heard that, I've been a lot more hesitant to do the internship thing.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a lot of ways to look at it. I think a lot of people, there's like this kind of like thing going on right now. This kind of like perception of like, the younger people, the Gen Zers, they ask for too much. They're not willing to cut their teeth. They're not willing to put in the hard work, right? But I could combat that with saying, you know what? I don't have any problems with that. If someone has the gumption or they feel like their value is a certain level, speak your mind. And if I'm going to pay you that, what you now have done is you've given me basically carte blanche to be on you like fucking white on rice.
You've shown the floor. You
Yeah.
expect we are going to get this much value.
That's what I need from you.
Yeah.
Because I'm prepared to give you this. That's not good enough for you. Well, guess what? Now the room for error is very minimal. And if you don't come through, if you don't make it happen, then you're not going to. So it's like, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
And again, I have no issues with that. I dig it. You want to like put your money where your mouth is? Let's go.
Yep. I agree. What's the single best piece of business advice you've ever received?
I don't even know. I don't know if any. I've heard this from multiple people. Just keep it simple. Just keep things very simple. Don't kind of like you can get out of your lane and you could try different stuff, but always have like something that's foundational to go back to. Have kind of like your go-to well type of thing. Right. So like for us, the clubs is kind of like always like it's our main foundation. Okay. We keep things very simple. Everyone's always like, why don't you serve food? Why don't you do drink specials? Why don't you do signature cocktails? Why don't you do this, do that, do that? I'm like, because people aren't coming here for all that other stuff. They're coming here for the comedy. They're coming here for the plastic cups. They're coming here for the experience, which is dark room, lit neon sign, and simple drinks. If they want a steak dinner, they can get that anywhere else. They do not get it here. Now, we will try things that maybe isn't, out, which is out of our kind of thing, right? Like management. Management is new to us, right? We're doing management. It's going really well. We really like doing it. But if, God forbid, something happened to it, let's say we stop doing it, we have our go-to, which is the clubs. So it's like, I've had multiple, club owners, Al Martin used to say this all the time to us, he's like, because we'd always get on now, Al, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? He's the guy who owned New York Comedy Club before us. He was like, guys, he's like, just keep it simple. He's like, you're just going to like create too many headaches for yourself. Having all these things is just, just keep it simple, And I tell that to everyone because, and that's really one of the gifts of having partners. Scott and I work really well together, and and Jim is really like the other partner and all these other things that we do. But I without question would probably add a million things to the club that probably would be unnecessary. And he kind of likes to keep things simple. And I think I even him out because if it weren't for me, we probably wouldn't do a lot of the things that we do because he would just want to stay in this one lane per se. Not that he's not thinking big stuff. He is, but like he's more simple and I tend to go a little bigger on stuff. And it's no different than like a restaurant. I mean, I don't know, like sometimes when I go to a restaurant and I see a menu that's 5 pages, it's too much.
Oh, it's actually restaurants that have big menus have worse customer satisfaction than those that have lesser options.
Yeah, dude. If you have too many options, sometimes you have no options. It's just too much.
Yeah, you get FOMO. You get more FOMO. Whereas you've only got 2 things to choose from. You pick one, you're happy.
Yeah, man. Like when I think a lot of times, like I just don't. I'd rather just have a simple menu. Like, dude, like I went to Rayos a few weeks ago. It was phenomenal. There's no menu. They just tell you what they got for the night. Like, this is what we have. Pick 2 of them.
That's awesome.
No, but it was phenomenal.
Yeah, that's so
Isn't
good.
that nice?
Yeah.
Their whole thing is you're coming here, trust us.
Yeah. I like
this
that.
is what you're going to get. So I kind of look at like, if you're running a club, have that same mentality. Like I have people all the time, I'm going to come to your club. Who's there tonight? I'm like, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. You're going to have a great night.
Yeah. So end on this for us, Emilio. What does success look like for the New York Comedy Club 5 years from now?
That we're still open, that we're still operating the way we're operating, that we have the staff still intact, that we are still consistent. And, it's not if we have 8 other clubs. We have everything that we need right now. We have more than what we need. Success to me looks like just keeping things as are. I mean, obviously we want to keep growing, we want to keep doing better. I don't want to just keep things as is per se in the sense of like, just, maintain, but yeah, I mean, just remain consistent. Like, I think, it's all about longevity. I want the clubs to be around until I'm 90 or 80 or and then even, when I do pass, Scott's got, I don't have any kids, but Scott's got children, I don't know, like I want this thing to keep going. So for me, success is maintaining, continuing with the consistency. And honestly, true success is the people that work for us are still with us, or if you're not with us, you're doing something that has added to what you learned with us.
Amazing.
Like I would love nothing more. Like if you're going to leave my company or stop working for me and you want to open your own thing somewhere, dude, that's amazing. That puts a smile on my face. And who knows, maybe we can be involved in that too. It's kind of like the Wu-Tang, the whole Wu-Tang philosophy, I saw their documentary and my favorite thing was they're like, we want everyone to go out there and do their own thing because it all comes back.
Yeah.
So that's success for me, man. Success is creating consistency, but also building opportunity for other people. Success for me is these comics that we're working with, like there's a comic, Rachel Williams, who's doing great. Katie Boyle, who we work on the management level. I want these comedians 5-6 years from now to be selling at the Garden. For me, that's success. Hey, we created a platform and we created a stomping ground for these comics to really hone their skills. And that's why comedy clubs are a special place. That's why I don't get spooked by AI. Look, I'm aware of the challenges that are ahead with things like AI and all these other things that are happening. And I don't want to be one of these guys who's like, oh, this is never going to happen. Like I just saw Titanic recently and, it's like even God himself cannot sink this ship. I mean, any ship can get sunk. But I do believe that the comedy club is the purest, most purest place for art. And that's why when I see these pop-ups and I see these, these different companies doing all these things, I don't feel any sort of threat because to me, like we are 7 nights a week. We are 70 to 100 shows a week. We are consistent every single night, you know, and that's just special. And when people come to my club or they go to a comedy club, they're there for the comedy. When you go to a barbershop show, and this isn't a diss, I think it's great, they're there for a little bit more of like an experience of the event and mingling. It's a social thing. They're there to, for the environment, and comedy is just a piece of it.
Yep.
When you come to my club, you're not there for anything other than to see comedy.
Yep.
So success for me in 5-10 years is for us to still be doing that.
Emilio, you're the first person to ever come on the Black Hoody podcast. You're the first repeat guest.
There it is.
I've had a lot of fun. I'm very, very grateful. Thank you so much.
You're the best, Luke. And yeah, keep doing it. I told Luke this earlier. I got so many emails from doing this podcast from people just saying like how great it was for them to kind of like learn a lot of the stuff that they really don't hear a lot of club owners talk about. And that was why I was really excited to get back on this and do more of these with you, because I really hope that I can kind of give information or help. Look, I just know there's people listening to this who probably have no idea how to break into this stuff. And I didn't have that when we were coming up. We had to learn on the fly. So if I can somehow offer any insight that can maybe help a young promoter out or a comic out or whatever out, again, I don't see it as a threat. I see it as someone who's been in a fortunate position to give insight. And I think that's a pay forward type of thing. So you're doing good stuff, Luke. I appreciate it.
I'll have you back on next time I'm in New York.
All right, my man.
Thanks, man.
Yes, sir.